Hi everyone, good evening. How are you all? I'm Dhwani from Geeks4Geeks and I will be the host for today's session. It's really great to have all of you here. And for today's session, we have a very special guest with us. I would like to welcome Nikhil. Hi, Nikhil.
Hi, Dhwani. Good evening,
How are you?
everyone. I'm great. Thanks for asking.
So it's really great to have you here, Nikhil. I'm really looking forward to this session, and I'm sure everybody who has joined today will learn a lot from you. So I would like to take up this opportunity to welcome you to introduce yourself.
All right. So my name is Nikhil. Hey, everyone. I'm Nikhil. I'm currently working at Paytm as a senior software engineer, and I'm having 3.5 years of full stack web development experience. So I started my journey with Angular, and then eventually moved on to React, which helped me um, which helped me crack the interview and get the role that I'm currently working at today.
That's great. So I guess without any further ado, let's just dive into the session. You can present your screen, Nikhil.
All right. Let me know when my screen is visible.
Sure.
All right. So before we begin, there are a couple of things that you can set up. So I've already downloaded and installed VS Code and Node. So you can get these from the official website. Okay. Once you do have that set up, you can create any dummy folder. And I want you to open command prompt. And we're going to start with a Hello World React application, and we're going to do so by running this command npx create react
Nikhil, if
app
possible,
followed
can
by
you
the.
increase the font size?
Actually, it's not possible to increase the font size over here. But once I do start coding, I would edit my font size for the VS Code. I hope that is all right.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I would be pasting this command. So it is npx create hyphen react hyphen app followed by the name. So let's call it hello world and press enter. So it is going to take a couple of minutes while things are being set up, because it is going to be installing node modules and all. So while it is being set up, we'll open our VS Code into this particular location. This is going to be our working directory, and just give me a moment, I'll be increasing the font size. I hope this is enough. Okay. It didn't happen at first, and then all the commands it executed all at once. Let's just go back and start again. Okay, now we are back to the initial one. I'll do this exactly 2 to 3 times. I hope if is this much sufficient, or shall I go 1 or 2 steps further? Okay,
I
this should
think
be enough.
this one is okay. Yeah, this one is okay.
Okay. So currently, as you can see, currently all I have is package.json installed. So it is basically like whenever we are installing something, so we are using node modules. So all these node modules are going to be installed and this is going to be updated. Since we have created our Hello World application, currently we don't have anything into our package.json, but this npx create React app, it is going to add the couple of extensions, a couple of modules that we are going to need for our deployment. So as you can see, our node module folder, it is already having so many of these things. So this is basically used for running our application. Now, before we even get started with React and everything, so what exactly Node is? We all know that JavaScript is the only language that is, natively supported by the browsers, and it is that only. So what Node does, Node is basically not a programming language. Node is basically a runtime environment that allows us to use, JavaScript outside of the browser. JavaScript is so great. The creators of Node, they decided that, why should browsers have all the fun, and they decided to create an environment that, so that we could execute it on a desktop environment. And Node is, it is really getting a lot of traction nowadays, because you can even build full-fledged servers with the help of Node and Express. So it is going to take a couple of minutes while the Node modules are getting installed and while we have our app set up. So while that happens, let's talk about JavaScript. So as we already know, there are around 1.2 billion websites in the world, and almost 90% of them, they run on JavaScript, right? And that number anyhow is going to increase. So this is one of the best time to switch to web development. So whether you're a front end developer or a back end developer, or if you have the best of both worlds, or you're a full stack developer, now is definitely the best time, because companies are hiring JS developers in the form of either in front end or in back end, or if you're a full stack developer, then you have got that going for you. So there is a huge market out there, and that number, as I mentioned, that 1.2 billion websites or web applications, that's how
Nikhil,
much.
there is some glitch with your camera,
Okay.
and now it has turned off.
Yeah, just a moment.
Sure.
Has it turned on yet? Okay, I guess one of the keyboard shortcuts might have accidentally turned it off.
Okay.
Is it coming up now?
Your video is still in a glitch, but I can hear you.
All right, just give me a moment.
If you have connected an external camera, you might want to just use your own laptop's camera.
Yeah, I'm using the current laptop camera only, but I don't know, it is glitching. But let me connect external webcam. Just allow me a moment. It is not getting detected. Just a moment.
If your
I think
camera
I'll
is
have
not
to.
working, it's okay. I guess we can proceed without the camera also.
Yeah, just a moment. Just let's give it to a couple of more minutes.
It's okay.
Yeah, I've connected the external one. Just a moment. Okay, is it? I
Yeah,
hope you can.
it's working.
All right. Yeah, I've connected the external camera now. It's all right. So I hope this is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Might be some issue. All right. So in the meantime, our node modules are already installed and we have our Hello World application at hand. Okay, so I would be, you know what, let's close this for now. I would be using the integrated terminal. So we are into our React Hello World application. Let me just clear this up. All right. Now, what do we do in order to start our React application? Our package.json, if you would see, it has been updated. So let's see. Let me show you how our package.json is basically looking now. So you can see these all these dependencies are added. So there's the testing dependencies for Jest. We have React, React DOM, React scripts, and a couple of commands that we're going to be using for building our React application and some other stuff. So package.json is it is basically like a manifest that we are using for telling like these all stuff we would be requiring, you know, when we uh, develop our application. Okay, so let's start our application. Our application is already there. Now all we need to do is start it. So we would be starting our application with the npm start command. So it is going to take some time while it is, you know, compiling all the node modules and building the packages. In the meantime, yeah, we can look at the structure. So what it is. So, you know, of all the JavaScript frameworks and libraries out there, React is one of the most popular, and it is, and there is a reason for it. The reason is that it has a very low learning curve. Most of the things that you are going to be doing, they're going to be very JavaScript specific. There are not any like framework or library specific things that we have to learn, you know, when it comes to say, I started my career with Angular. So a lot of things that we learn with Angular, they stay with Angular only. It has nothing to do with JavaScript or TypeScript itself. But when it comes to React, most of the time we are mostly working with native JavaScript only, and we are just uh, barely. It is, you would not feel like you are learning any new language or anything else for that matter. Okay, so React is a single page application. Within this entire application, if you notice, let's go through our directory one by one and see what it is while our application is serving. So we have our index.html. Now this is the only you can say that only HTML within our entire application. So that is why it is known as a single page application, because there is only going to be one page, and then we are going to have certain components which are going to be replaced into the view. Okay, so you can notice the title over here, that is the React application, and I believe our application is served on, by default our application will be running on port 3000. So this is going to be accessible over here. Let me increase my font size. In the meantime, I'll just share the commands that I have been using. It is only going to take a couple of minutes, couple of seconds actually, while our dev server is running. So as I was telling you, see, notice this div over here which is having the ID root. So over here, there is some information that this is the HTML template file. If you open it directly into the browser, we'll see the empty page. To begin the development, we have to run npm start or yarn start, and to build the production bundle, we have to use npm build or yarn build. Whatever node package manager, if you're using npm or yarn, you'll have to use the respective command. So within this div and id root, notice this over here, we don't have any content whatsoever. This is just an HTML comment. I can even remove it. It is not going to be rendered onto the screen. The first time it does take quite some time since it is serving for the first time. And the question is, where exactly does this content come from? Our entire application or the entire code, basically it is going to be rendered within this div component with the ID root. Now we also have that index.js file. So if we look into it, notice this. So initially, uh, this is something that we all might be familiar with. It is document.get element by id root. So we are referring to this div over here. So basically, we are targeting with that div, and we are using React DOM. This is uh, imported from the React DOM.time. This is used to basically create a React element. Okay, within it, we are creating a root element, and we are saying root.render. Within the strict mode, we are rendering something called as app. Now, if you are familiar with the basic HTML, you would notice that we don't have any components like app. We have the image tag, body, paragraph, and all this stuff, but we do not have something called as this app tag. All right, and application is also served, so we can have a look. So this is the our Hello World application that we have started. And let me pull up the console. You can access the DevTools by pressing Control Shift I or Command Shift I or Control Shift I if you're using Windows or Mac respectively. Let me increase the font size for you. Remember this, within our HTML, this entire div with the ID root was empty. But now you would notice it is having something, it is having some content. See over here, it is empty, it is not having any content. But once our application is started, we are seeing all this content which is present inside this div with the ID root. Now we have another div with a class app, we have header and all these things. So where exactly all this is coming from? Let's take a look. So as I was saying, within this root component, we are rendering the app component. Now this is something, you can think of it like a custom component or a custom tag. Now this is, uh, if you look over here, this app.component, it is imported from here, from app.js. You can ignore the JS or JSX because by default it is going to import it with that syntax with or without it. But please make sure that whenever you're importing the CSS, you do provide that extension. Otherwise, it is not going to be imported. So let's head to the app.js. So within here, you can see something. We have a div with a class name as app. And let me put it side by side so we can just have a walkthrough. Right. Now we have a div with a class name with a class as app. We have the header, image, and everything that is being rendered over here. But what is this class name? See, normally HTML recognizes something as class only. When we are working with React, actually the keyword, we cannot use the word class over here because that is a restricted keyword in JavaScript. So that is the only slight change over here. And what you are seeing over here, it may look like HTML, but it's not normal HTML. It is something that we call as JSX. Let's create a readme.md file. Within it, I'll be typing. Okay, so let's clear this up. So whatever we are seeing over here within the within our app.js, this thing, it may look like HTML, but it is JSX. So what is this JSX? JSX is basically stands for JavaScript Extended. You can think of it in this way. So it is basically, you can say, a combination of HTML and then JavaScript. The thing is, with the HTML, we cannot have dynamic content. We cannot use variables within our HTML. But as you can see over here, within our image, we have the source tag, we have the source attribute, and this logo. This logo, it is coming as a dynamic content. It is coming. It is being used as a variable. We cannot do so within a normal HTML. Okay, so this is like the basic structure where you are going to use JSX for creating the component. So let's go ahead and create another component. Let's just clear everything up. This is anyhow the starter boilerplate code. We are not going to be needing this. So let me go ahead and clear all of this up. All right. Now we are not left with anything. Let's just create an h1 tag. Says hello world. And let's save it. Once it is compiled, you can see. So this is my entire app component right now with the hello world tag. So let's go ahead and I'm not going to be making any changes further into this app component. We'll just use it sort of like a placeholder. Let's create a new component. So I'll call this component as users. And we'll create a new file, user.jsx. Now notice the extension. As soon as I type this JSX extension, even this icon, this React icon is coming up. Similarly over here, I can basically replace this JSX JS with JSX, and it is anyhow going to be the same. So how do we get started with creating a new component? Well, by default, VS Code has emits installed. There are a couple. VS Code is a really good tool when you are working with web development. So there are a couple of extensions that are going to be really useful. For starters, I already have installed this ES7 React snippets so that I don't have to type the basic boilerplate code over and over again. So in order to create a new component, I can just type this snippet RCC, and it is going to basically expand into this React class component. So this is how basically we have created a new component with the help of emits. All right, now we have the new component. Let's call it users. Now we have this component users. Now how can we use it in the similar manner that this app.js was used? I'll simply use it over here. And we also need to import it. Currently it is not here. That's it. Now we would have access to the users component within my app component. I hope you can see it is still a little small. You know what? Let's put it into an h1 tag so it is somewhat visible. Now I have this users component being rendered. So within my ID, now notice how the contents of this have been replaced. The contents of this root component have been replaced with the contents of the users component. Okay, so everything that we are writing over here, see, but we are extending the React class component, and based on it, it is having a method called as render, and whatever we are returning from here, that is being rendered, that is being displayed onto the console. Now again, the benefits of JSX, as I was saying, I can have something like I can have const name equals Nikhil. Actually, just Nikhil would suffice because this is more or less like a class component. We can have it as a property. And if I want to say, if I want to render it, I can simply use this. Yeah, in order to use JS expression, I'll have to use this curly braces or this braces. Now, anything that I write over here, that is going to be treated as JavaScript. So I can refer to my variable with this dot name keyword. Just a moment, I'll put it on to the bottom of the screen. Let's drop this onto the bottom of the screen so we can have full view of our page. As soon as I save it, see, now we are getting hello Nikhil. How? So basically this variable name is being rendered and that value is being displayed over here. So this is how basically we can use a variable into our React application. Not only this, we can our component can also receive something called as props. So this way we can the parent component can pass some data into this child component. So we can even pass something like let's say I'm passing the name property over here. So instead of using a normal variable as we have done over here, this time I'll be using the props. I'll be getting it from the props. So I'm using the ES6 destructuring method for getting the property name. And this time we are entering this name property from the props. Now props is something that this parent component app is sharing to the child component. So just a moment. Why is it not getting rendered? Let's put it outside the render. Okay, we're having a class component, so it won't allow me, to have it directly like this. So I'll have to use. You know what? Let's within the render function, let's log the props first. The props would be received as a key value pair. Correct? Okay, I guess our app.js was not saved. That's why it was not coming up. Now it is coming. All right, so let's do that again. Now within this props, I am having the name property. So let's try and access this. This dot props. Okay, we'll be rendering the name property from the props over here. And there we have it. So the thing about props is that it is read only. We cannot modify it if at some later stage, let's say I have a button over here. And again, see, I'm getting some of these errors. Now, why am I getting this error? Because our render function is supposed to return only one uh, parent. So what we are going to do, we are going to wrap it within an empty React fragment. And once we do that, these red squiggly lines, these errors, they are basically going to go away. So let's try that again. Now, what this button is going to do, I'll try to change this name from Nikhil. We'll try to update this name. We have this on click event listener. What we want to do, we want to update the name to something else. Actually, we have declared it with the const. So it would not be allowed. So let's try something else. Let's call it test. See, it is not working. Why it is not working? Because anyhow, first of all, actually this time I'm trying to update the variable name, so it is fine. But if I were to, if I try to update this props directly, I would get an error. Because props are anyhow read-only and they cannot be updated. It is a read-only property and they cannot be updated. If I try this, I'm basically going to get an error. Cannot assign to read-only property. Right. So what do I do in order in case if I have some things that if some properties are there that I need to modify? Well, in that case, we'll use something called a state. You can think of state as like a basic container which is going to have all the properties, all the variables that is going to be uh, that is going to be useful for that particular component. So let's quickly create our state with the constructor. And remember, this user class is basically a derived class from this component. So in order to, this is like basic oops over here. So in order to access the base class constructor, in order to access this keyword, I have to first of all invoke the parent class constructor using the super keyword. Otherwise, if I don't do this, this is going to give me another error. Once I have this, I can define my state using this dot state. Over here, we can have the name property. So this is my default state wherein I'm suggesting that my name to be Nikhil. Okay, now that we have done it, this time we can modify the name. So what we're going to do, once we have, now instead of reading this from the name from props, let's get it from the state itself. So now we are getting this name property from the state itself. Let's remove this from here. And what we're going to do, and apart from this, we also have another method which is called setState. Now, this setState method, it basically allows us to modify any property. So if initially, let's keep it empty right now. Initially, if it was empty, and later on, if I would like to update this variable, I can simply say that, okay, what I want to update within the state, it basically takes an object as a key value there. So I can say that name as Nikhil. So this works. These are the previous errors. This is going to go away once I refresh. And once I do click it, see my name property, my name, not property, basically the state variable is now updated correctly. So state is useful. So the basic difference between state and props is that props is useful when we are receiving something from the parent component that is basically it is going to be read only, and we are not going to be modifying it later on. State is useful when we do need to perform certain mutations. Okay, so enough about the basic stuff. Now, one of the reasons that you would notice that why React is really gaining popularity is because of something that is called as virtual DOM. Now, what exactly is virtual DOM is? Updating these DOM tree, whatever you are seeing over here, this is visible onto the browser with the help of something that is called as DOM tree. So, let's stick to the browser only for now. So our DOM tree will have something within. We're going to start with the HTML as the root tag. Within it, it is going to have two children, head and the body, and so on and so forth. Now, whenever we are making any change, it is very costly, when updating the DOM directly. So if any of the properties, if any of the children is changing, that entire component has basically it has to be reconstructed. So there are a couple of things that goes into, when rendering this entire page onto the browser. There is like first of all, the entire source code for this HTML is being parsed. It is being converted to the HTML nodes. The nodes are then assigned, and then if we encounter any CSS or JavaScript in that particular time, based on that script attribute, whether it is async, defer, or based on that, it is our render is either going to be blocked or that is going to continue. And once all that happens, the DOM tree and the CSS object model tree, that is going to combine to give us finally this. So React, what actually does is, now next time when you are appearing for a React interview and the interviewer asks you, why is React highly performant? You don't simply go ahead and say like, yeah, it is because of virtual DOM, but how does that virtual DOM actually work? So let's get into that. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go to JSON IP code. We'll get some dummy data. So let's get some dummy data for the users, and I'll update this. I'll put it into the state as a user's property. Okay, now we have list of all the users which is having all these props, all these properties with the ID, name, username, email address, and everything. Okay, so let's try and render it and see how this React reconciliation algorithm, or how this basic virtual DOM works. So we don't need this right now. So one way I can do, I can create like I have around 10 different users over here, so I can just go one by one. Either I can create 10 different divs for each and every user, or what I can do, I could basically iterate over this. So uh, this is something that is called as component repeat. So here's what we'll do. Let's first of all let's get state users, and this is not going to be changing, so let's mark it as constantly. What we're going to do, we are going to iterate over this array, and for each user, what we want, let's render everything into an h1 tag. Currently, I want to see the username only. So let's do that. User.name. Alternatively, instead of having to do all of this, I could also destructure it from here. So instead of writing like I'm receiving the user object over here and then I'm accessing the name property, I can directly destructure this in this manner. So currently I'm concerned with the name property only. I can directly use name over here. So let's save it and head back to our browser. See, I'm from this list. I'm getting list of all. I'm getting a list within the h1 tag. All the names are getting rendered. You know what? Let's create. Let's wrap this into an ordered list. Okay, and instead of an h1, you know what? Let's this time let's return a list item. Okay. So let's save it and head back to our browser. And now we have list of all the 10 users. Correct. We can see this. We have an order list, and here I have a list of all these 10 items. So what I want to do, what I'm going to do right now, on the click of this button, I want to add another user, and I want to show you how basically that is going to look like within my DOM, how it is going to affect my DOM on this document object model over here. So let's create that method. Let's call it add user. Okay, so what it is going to do, basically it is going to receive an event. We're not really concerned with it. So what we're going to do, we're going to update the state, this dot set state. What I want to pass into the users, let's take the existing array. So this is, I'm using the basic spread operator. And over here, let's insert a new object with name as Nikhil and ID as 101. Right, so basically what I'm trying to do over here, I'm going to insert this user with the name Nikhil and ID 101 at the beginning of this list. Okay, and whatever this is basically the rest operator that I'm using for the remaining users. And let's bind this to our on-click method. So event will just simply say this dot add user. The event basically takes a callback, so I am setting it as a callback only. And let's update the text as well to add user. I really wanted to pay attention to this order list. To each one of these, please pay attention. Please click close attention and see what happens as soon as I click this button. Okay, let's refresh it and head back. Yeah, now you would notice that there is one error onto the console that each child in the list should have a unique key property. Yeah, this is very much intentional. I have left this out. So anyhow, let's head back to the elements. And where is my ordered list? Yeah. Over here, you can see I have like 10 list items over here. Now notice what happens as soon as I click this add user. You would notice each one of these list items it got highlighted. Why? Because each one of these list item that is changing. If I do that again, let's expand each one of them. So that basically you can see how it is happening. So what it instead of inserting it would feel like why can't we just insert a list item onto this top and be done with it. But basically what is happening is since a new object is being inserted, this entire list is being reconstructed from scratch. So basically I had 10 items initially, and as soon as I add another user, I click on this button which is going to add another user. Each one of these, you can see whatever is flashing over here, that is that is modifying, that is changing. So I had 10 users already, and I'm basically doing that work all over again. So out of all these users which are already rendered, I'm rendering this new user. Anyhow, that was intentional. But apart from it, I am rendering everything again. Well, that seems like an awful lot of work for something where it is not even required. Okay, so this is where basically virtual DOM it comes into the action. Now coming back, circling back to the error that we were getting on console. So it is saying that each child in the list should have a unique key prop. So what this key prop is going to do now? It is going to basically this key property is used to uniquely identify this child element, and if the contents of the child element is not going to change, that element is not going to be re-rendered. Let's see that now. So over here within the list item, let's wherever we are you know generating this list item, let's add the key prop as well. So I'm going to add the key as the ID because it is each of my user object is having the ID property, and that is going to be unique. So let's add it and save it. And again, this is error from before. Refreshing it is going to go away now. So again, let's head back to our elements. I'll expand my DOM tree over here. Now I want you to notice carefully this time. See, the previous time we had done is this, all of these list items, they had flashed indicating that this entire order list is being constructed. Each one of these items being rendered again. Notice what happens now. Only one item flashed and this item flashed. Other than that, they did not flash at all. Now this is the benefit of, this is how basically, your React virtual DOM into the action. So it is basically saying that my list item with my list item Clementine, it is same, exactly same as before. So why should I re-render it again? Let's keep the content same as before. This is same as before. Everything is same as before. Only this content, it was already not there. So this is being added as a new property. So only this order, my order list is changing, and this list item, only this is being highlighted. In order to see that, what, let us extend our function. So instead of add user, what, let's make it add or remove user. Okay, and we can have a property within the state. It's going to be add user, and initially let's set it to true. So clicking on this button, what my intention is over here. So I want to either add or remove a particular user. So again, I would have to modify this text, and we can even have dynamic text over here with React. So based on this property, add user, this is there. Show me the content as, show me the text as add user, else remove user. And since we have updated the function signature, we'll have to update this as well. And if this dot add user, if it is there, then we want to do this. And this time we are also updating this add user property. What are we setting it to? It's opposite. It's towards basically this dot state dot add user. So whatever it was initially, now I'm just setting it to the inverse of it. Let's head back to the else part. Yeah. In this case, we are adding the user. In this case, we are going to be removing the user. So how can we remove the user? First of all, let's get access to the users array. Next, we have to remove this item from the user. So I can use this ES6 array destructuring. So I basically want to remove the first user only. Just users. So we don't want the user class, we want the users array. And finally, I can set it. There I have it. And what I can actually do now, instead of even combining, instead of having writing each, writing this individually, I can even combine everything into one statement. So this entire thing, basically, it can be rewritten as this. Let me just comment this out. You can have it for your reference. What we are doing over here, this is something that is called as nested destructuring, and we need to have the user property. But this also works. This is exactly same as this. So we have basically combined these two steps. Okay, and apart from this, apart from the users, we are also updating this add user property. So add user, we are going to set it to its inverse. This way we can even have some sort of a dynamic content over here. And let me just remove this key prop once again and show you how it is behaving earlier. Now we have this add user, we get this add user option. Everything is being reconstructed, including the button itself. Button anyhow, it is supposed to re-render because the text is changing. And when I'm removing, since I'm removing from the first end, everything is flashing again. Now let's see that with the help of the key prop. Now we get to see the React virtual DOM live in action. So while adding, only this ordered list, this list item, and this button is flashing. And similar, we have the similar response when we are removing this option. So this is basically your virtual DOM into the action. So next time, just the interviewer asks you like how this is working. There's also a follow-up question: how actually React diffing algorithm works internally. So it's not like you can just get away by saying just a virtual DOM only. So actually, we are going to cover that in the uh, later on courses. So now coming to this course that we are going to be having. Now, what is this course intended for? So if you're a student or a working professional, so if you're a student, you would basically require to undergo internships or something, or you are required to have some experience before you step foot into the industry. So this is going to be really great because you know what I'm going to teach you, we are going to build a project from scratch, and we're going to use the latest convention and the best industry, and we're going to code it as per the industry standards. If you're a working professional, it sometimes happen that we do not get that kind of exposure at work. I have personally experienced it. So that is a good opportunity for you because anyhow your career, it is in your own hands. So you can upskill, you can learn, you can get that sort of industry exposure. Because see, whenever you're appearing for as an experienced professional, whenever you're appearing for the interviewer is not only judging you on your knowledge. The interviewer is also looking at the way you write code, if you are writing modular code or not, and if you're using the latest and the best convention. So you are being judged on all of these factors. And also there is something that is called as code quality as well. Your code should not have any code smells or code bugs or anything as such. So as a working professional, you are going to be judged on a lot of these factors. So yeah. So this is the basic, a demonstration you can say for the how this React virtual DOM is working and how it internally, you know, it prevents re-rendering of this DOM. And in the upcoming session, we basically go through the entire algorithm, how it is working, and uh, how it basically affects. And apart from this, you know what, I'm not basically we're just changing the color only. We can also modify the text. We can also add dynamic classes as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add bootstrap. Right, there is a type over here. So while it is being installed, I'll import it as well with my app component. I don't have it yet. I'll just have to wait until it is installed. Okay, now we have it. Bootstrap. This CSS we want bootstrap dot main dot CSS. Alternatively, if you don't want to go through this path, uh, you can even have it. You can use a CDN as well. Just a moment. Let me connect my charger. Now we have Bootstrap imported into our system. Let's go ahead and use these classes. So as I had already told you, we specify classes in Bootstrap using class name. And instead of having a normal string, I'll use a JS template string over here. So we'll have the BTN class. And based on this add user button, we're going to show either a BTN primary or a danger class. So this way, like we're also changing the color of this button. Okay. You can see over here for add user, I'm getting a blue button over here with the primary color. And if I click on this, now I'm getting the remove, because this, I believe this is more semantically correct. It speaks to the user because red is for removing, and let's, instead of primary, let's make it success, so that it is clear that it is basically used for adding a user. Green is basically like for adding the user, and remove is going to be for removing the user. So this is like the basics. You can say that the introduction to React. Dhwani, would you like to take over? And please feel free to add anything in case I missed anything.
Sure, Nikhil. It was a great session. We can see that a lot of people, like are still there. That means this was a successful session. And for those of you who are wondering how to enroll in this course, the link of this course is in the description. And you can also, like enroll there. And you can also refer to the Practice for Geeks website for the same. And I'm sure Nikhil would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have at this point of time. So we'll just wait for 1 minute and you can share your questions if you have any in the chat box. Is that
All
okay,
right,
Nikhil?
now, yeah, sure, that is all right. I'm seeing a lot of these comments regarding the function component. See, whenever you are starting with React, you have to start with the class-based component. You have to know that the world has already moved back like 3 years back. The world has already moved back to the functional components, and at work as well, we work on functional components. But it is important from an interview perspective. So we start from the functional class-based components, and then we transition like slowly. We imitate the various life cycle methods using hooks and all. So don't worry, everything is going to be covered. We don't just don't just take the 10th step. We have to go step by step.
Also, for those of you who are going to enroll in this course, you can use this discount coupon to get a discount on the course, and I'm sure it will be beneficial to you all. So, just navigate to the link in description and apply this code while you're, like buying the course. I'm sure it will be great. So, thank you so much, Nikhil. Seeing there are no questions in the chat, so I guess we'll just close this session. It was great having you, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot from you today. Personally, I learned a lot. I have already have the notes ready, and I'll just start working on them right away. So thank you so much, Nikhil, and thank you so much everyone for staying here. Have a great evening ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.